kind of test to test for THC, which again, in theory, more directly assesses for recent marijuana use. So did you use it in the last 5 hours, as opposed to did you use it a week and a half ago, which may be advantageous. But remember, all right, so I'm going to say, like, it's not just lawyers that say that, it's social scientists too, right? Saliva and breath as a testing medium is not approved by the FDA, is not approved by SAMHSA, and it's not approved by the Department of Transportation as defensible. So even if we have these technologies that come out, some sort of policy change will have to be enacted before we can use them, at least for the purposes of federal drug testing under those auspices. Thoughts? Everybody was so talkative before. Okay. What other advantages or disadvantages of each do you all think there are among these various means of testing? Yes?
The disadvantage of blood is the invasiveness.
Right.
It's just something that people don't know what to do about that part.
Right, it feels invasive. We have to stick somebody with a needle. You have to have someone who is certified as a phlebotomist in order to do it effectively and to do it safely. It feels more invasive than people are willing to do, which is part of why urine is more common, because it in one way feels very invasive for obvious reasons. Watching people go to the bathroom is a very private thing, of course, and that's invasive. But it doesn't feel the same as drawing their blood, as breaking their skin and going into their body. Right. What else?
So here we'll sample, it would be a disadvantage for women because it's more typical to have longer hair and longer history, right?
Right. Right. If you were my father, good luck. Yeah. Although you can get hair from other parts of the body too.
The hair doesn't pick up marijuana very well unless it's chronic, pre-chronic use.
And the science within all of these varies, right? We've developed some pretty sophisticated scientific strategies for testing for any variety of substances in urine and blood, a little bit more with saliva and breath, but it's not all the same. The joke that I like to make whenever I'm giving these talks is that if I had it all to do over again, I'd go get a PhD in toxicology at the Anschutz campus and develop a roadside sobriety test for marijuana. Advocate to change the policy about testing for federal standards, sell it to every police department in the country, and go retire on a beach. It's not totally true. I like what I do, but I'm sure that somebody out there is working on that.
And certainly policy will be driven as more states come on board with legalization, especially decriminalization.
And as you look at this sort of decriminalization, legalization, the map of the country, the one from the Denver Post, that there seems to be value there. Yes, Randy.
Well, I'm not sure how to word this exactly. The advantage of urine testing is just looking at metabolites, and it kind of gets you away from how many of this and that equals impaired or under the influence, and it just simplifies life.
Right. Harkening back a little bit to Rachel's question, like how did we come to these standards? And what we did for alcohol, again, let's borrow some of our thoughts there, or at least let's analyze it along those theoretical lines, is that we said, society, said that 0.08 is the level at which it is not okay under any circumstance to be operating a motor vehicle if you're above 0.08. That's a per se standard, as Vance would have called it, right? So even if you have a really high tolerance or there's something else going on, if you test for that, or if you test with your BAC at above 0.08, that's not okay, regardless. We don't care how it goes with impairment. We don't care how that correlates. Or maybe we care, but not enough to develop policy around it. We run into this challenge because 5 nanograms per milliliter, we don't necessarily know where that number came from. We don't know if it corresponds to any particular level of impairment. 5 nanograms because you used a little bit an hour ago versus 5 nanograms because you used a lot 2 weeks ago. We don't really have a good way of differentiating that. The science just isn't there quite yet. Very good point. Yeah. I thought I saw another hand. I was incorrect. Okay. this is a general timetable. Of course, this is variable, as we were talking about before. With urine, you might expect to see alcohol. Marijuana is where you see these long periods of time. And Brian was pointing out somebody that they'd heard about who was more than 2 months. A particularly heavy user, I would suspect, and who is overweight, who had a lot of fat content in his body. There's a lot of things that play into this. What's somebody's body fat percentage, which of course then also disadvantages people with higher body fat percentages. And I'm sorry, but on the aggregate, women have higher body fat percentages than men, so that disadvantages women right off the bat, right? And then there's metabolic processes are very different. We have an expert in the back of the room who can talk more about that than I ever could. But all of those things. So, but at the same time, all of these other things still fall within what we have sort of socially considered a reasonable period of time is 2 to 4 days, except for some of these downer medications or pills that can last for long periods of time if they're particularly lipophilic, etc. Okay. We do have a little bit of time for the tabletop exercise. All right. So this is about development of workplace policies and how EAPs can work within these workplace policies. So I want to congratulate all of you as you get into groups of maybe 4 or 5 people around you. Yeah, I want to make this a little bit active. Let's see what we can do. Find your group. Let me go. All right. Your group are now ownership and management of a high-end car dealership. Does anybody know what this car is? It's Bentley. That's an
Aston Martin, isn't it?
That's an Aston Martin 177. It's fantastic. Anyway, and I like pictures of cars, and I like cars, so this is why you get to deal with this. But anyway, you have inherited a car dealership, Ursine Motors. That means like a bear. Deals exclusively in high-end exotic cars. So you provide full service because your clientele tend to be very wealthy, very exacting, very sort of persnickety people. All right. Included in these services that you have people, a total of 95 people operating in a number of departments, including management, administrative folks, a lot of sales staff, of course, as any car dealership has. You have shipping and distribution. So you have people who drive cars directly to customers. You have people who go out and pick them up in order to bring them back if they've had service done or if their car is now only available because it just hadn't shipped over from England. Your Aston Martin 177 has to come that way usually, etc. So you have people who are driving, all right? And then service, right? So you have service folks. You have the techs who are operating lifts. They're welding. They're doing all kinds of other things with machinery that I think we could reasonably call safety sensitive, right? Some things that are dangerous that could cause harm to them. It could cause harm to other people who are around them if procedures aren't followed in a very sort of good way. All right. Okay. Now, if you were Ursine Motors EAP, what employee concerns might you have related to use of legal and illegal substances? We're going to assume that this is in Colorado, by the way. And what types of procedures, structures, etc., would you want the company to have in place? Discuss amongst yourselves.